Have you ever stopped to wonder what if everything they call love is nothing more than fear of being alone? What if the need to have someone is simply a disguise to avoid facing the emptiness within yourself? And what if what you call a relationship is just another way to run away from you? Nothing is closer to the truth than the discomfort we feel in solitude. The Stoics urged us to imagine being on our deathbed, the room silent, the air heavy, the weight of your life pressing in, and to ask, did you live your own life, or did you merely exist in the shadow of someone else's? The Stoics also warned us against surrendering our inner freedom, reminding us that the chains we accept willingly are the hardest to break. We dress those chains in romance, in companionship, in the illusion of completion, but deep down, something burns, something tears at you, whispering that you were meant for more. If you've ever felt that whisper, if you've sensed that truth hiding beneath the surface of your relationships, then you already know this conversation is for you. And if you seek the courage to face yourself without masks, to build a life rooted in your own strength and sovereignty, consider subscribing for the version of you who refuses to abandon their own soul. Most people don't fall in love because they've reached a place of wholeness. They fall because they're terrified of the silence that waits for them when the noise stops. The kind of silence that forces you to hear your own thoughts, to confront the questions you've been avoiding for years. There's an empty space in their life, a space that feels too wide, too echoing, too raw, so they fill it with another person. Not always because they deeply want that person, but because it's easier than facing themselves. We rarely talk about how much of what we call love is simply a beautifully dressed form of avoidance. It's easier to get lost in someone else's stories, emotions, and needs than to confront our own. Carl Jung once wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." And for many, a relationship isn't a bridge to true connection. It's a shield from that loneliness, a way to pretend they are understood, even when they've never truly understood themselves. The problem is, when love is rooted in fear, it becomes fragile. Every disagreement feels like a threat, every moment of distance like a crack in the glass. The relationship starts to carry the impossible task of holding together not just two lives, but also the unresolved parts of each person. And when those cracks begin to show, panic sets in. People cling harder, negotiate away their own values, silence their desires, and bend themselves into shapes that don't quite fit, just to keep the other person from walking away. It's not love at that point. It's a survival tactic. It's a way to keep from being left alone with the very silence they've been running from. In love, the opposite often happens. We seek to be validated, accepted, approved, and in the process, we trade away the raw honesty that could actually help us grow. This is why so many lose themselves in relationships without even realizing it. The process is subtle, almost invisible at first. You compromise on small things, where to eat, what to watch, how you spend the weekend. It feels harmless. It feels like partnership. But then the compromises grow. You hold back parts of yourself because you know they won't understand. You stop pursuing certain dreams because they create tension. You start adjusting your personality, not because you want to, but because you're afraid that being your full self might cost you the relationship. Over time, the person you were becomes harder to recognize, even to yourself. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And that's the quiet tragedy. So many people stop truly living once they're afraid of losing someone. When the foundation of love is fear, it keeps you from the very thing love is supposed to bring, freedom. A healthy love should allow you to stand taller, not shrink smaller. It should strengthen your individuality, not erase it. But when fear is in control, love becomes a contract of unspoken conditions. Don't be too much. Don't change too fast. Don't disturb the balance, even if that balance is quietly suffocating you. People convince themselves that this is normal, that this is the price of being with someone. But what they don't realize is that this price is far higher than they think. They're paying with their authenticity, their creativity, their growth. And all of it is traded for the comfort of not facing themselves. The irony is, the silence they're running from is not their enemy, it's their teacher. In solitude, the noise fades, and you begin to hear your real voice again. At first, it's uncomfortable. You hear doubts, fears, regrets. But if you stay with it long enough, you also hear your values, your calling, your truth. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." You cannot do that if you're always drowning in someone else's presence, if your every thought is shaped to keep the peace rather than to find your own center. The fear behind love is rarely about losing another person. More often, it's about losing the distraction they provide. When you remove that distraction, you're left with yourself. And for many, that's the scariest encounter of all. But this is the encounter that changes everything. Because once you can sit in your own silence without needing to escape it, you stop depending on others to make you feel whole. You stop negotiating away your identity for the sake of belonging. You begin to love by choice, not by necessity. And that is the kind of love that cannot be broken by absence or distance, because it's not built on fear, it's built on freedom. Choosing to face the silence is not easy. It takes courage to stop reaching for someone just to avoid yourself. But that courage is the foundation of a life where love becomes a gift, not a crutch. Where being with someone is a deliberate decision, not an unconscious escape. Where you can walk away from what doesn't serve you, not because you don't care, but because you care too much about not abandoning yourself. The fear behind love will keep you running in circles. Facing it will set you free. And freedom, as the Stoics taught, is the only possession no one can take from you. From the moment we're old enough to understand words, the story begins. It comes in bedtime tales, in movies, in the way adults speak about life. You grow up, you meet someone, you fall in love, and you settle down. It's painted as the ultimate destination, the final chapter where all loose ends are tied and the credits roll over a happy ending. Few ever stop to ask what happens after that scene fades to black, and fewer still question whether this script serves everyone, or whether it silently robs us of the chance to meet the most important person we'll ever know, ourselves. This conditioning doesn't arrive like a command. It's softer, more insidious. It lives in casual questions from relatives. When are you going to meet someone? As if your life is a waiting room for love. It hides in compliments that compare your worth to your relationship status. By the time we're adults, the message is no longer questioned. It's absorbed, unquestioned, like gravity. The effect of this quiet programming is profound. Without even realizing it, many people grow into adults who believe that life without a partner is incomplete by definition. They may travel, learn, build careers, but somewhere in the back of their mind there's a constant, unspoken reminder that all of it is just filler until they find someone. And so they enter relationships not out of readiness or genuine self-knowledge, but out of a sense of duty to the story they were handed. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." For many, a relationship becomes a way to avoid that terrifying work. If someone else validates us, we don't have to fully validate ourselves. If someone else mirrors back our value, we don't have to face the silence that asks us to define it for ourselves. This invisible conditioning shapes not only who we choose, but how we behave once we've chosen. If you've been taught that your worth is tied to being partnered, You will often endure situations that harm you just to avoid returning to the dreaded state of being single. You will ignore red flags, tolerate disrespect, or contort yourself into someone else's ideal rather than risk the shame of ending up alone. Marcus Aurelius once observed, "It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." The judgment here is subtle but crushing. Alone equals failure, together equals success. It is this false equation that keeps countless people trapped in lives that do not reflect who they truly are. It's worth noticing that this script doesn't have mental gravity that keeps you centered when life pulls in 1,000 directions. You don't have to explain your intensity. You don't have to apologize for wanting more. In the right circle, your ambition doesn't intimidate, it inspires. Your discipline doesn't isolate, it connects. Your vision doesn't make you different, it makes you understood. Marcus Aurelius warned that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. But it's not just your thoughts that color your soul, it's also the company you keep. The people you let into your inner circle are like ink dropped in water. They will mix into your energy, your habits, your self-concept. That's inevitable. What's not inevitable is who you let in. That part is yours to decide. So be intentional. Choose people whose presence sharpens you, people who speak your name in rooms you're not in, people who talk to you like you've already become the person you're working toward. Not because they're flattering you, but because they see your trajectory clearly. They speak life into it. They hold space for it. They won't let you forget it. These are not casual connections. These are anchors. And when you find them, when you build that circle, you'll feel the shift. You'll move with more certainty. Your goals will feel heavier in the best way. You'll stop asking for motivation because you'll have momentum. You'll wake up to people who hold you to your higher self, and that is one of the most powerful forces on earth. Because when aligned minds move together, they multiply. One vision becomes stronger, one doubt becomes lighter, and forward becomes the only direction. This isn't about perfection, it's about resonance. It's about standing next to people who remind you, without needing to say a word, that you are not alone in your discipline, your vision, or your becoming. And when the world gets noisy and your mind gets tired, it is those people, the aligned ones, who will steady you until you can steady yourself again. When you begin to live like it's already yours, something subtle but powerful takes root. You stop chasing things from a place of lack and instead begin acting from a place of quiet certainty. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You're no longer searching the world for permission to believe. You've already chosen to believe, and now your actions, tone, and presence begin to reflect that. You walk into rooms without explaining yourself. You speak without needing validation. You stop proving and start becoming. Because something in your posture says, "I've already arrived," even if the destination hasn't shown up yet. This isn't about pretending. It's not about faking confidence or forcing positivity. It's about practicing presence, real presence, the kind that comes from anchoring yourself in the truth you've decided to live by long before anyone else recognizes it. You no longer act like someone trying to earn their future. You act like someone carrying it already. And when you do that, the world begins to organize around you. Not because of magic, but because clarity has gravity. When you know who you are and walk in that knowing, people respond differently. Doors open, conversations shift, resistance weakens. And when your actions begin to mirror your inner conviction, you stop living on the edge of your potential and step fully into it. You speak with less noise, not because you're trying to be quiet, but because your certainty doesn't require volume. There's no need to convince, no need to explain. Your energy becomes the evidence, and that evidence does more to shape the world around you than any argument ever could. Living as if it's already yours doesn't mean you're blind to reality. It means you've chosen to see beyond it. You're aware of the challenges. You recognize the gap between now and then. But you no longer measure your behavior based on the gap. You measure it based on the goal. You begin making decisions not from your current circumstances, but from your future self. What would they choose? How would they move? What would they say yes to or walk away from without hesitation? That shift in perspective rewrites your entire approach to life. And when you begin living from that space, desperation falls away. You stop clinging. You stop needing everything to happen immediately. Because you know it's coming. You've already claimed it in your mind, and now your job is simply to act like someone preparing for it, not someone begging for it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When you move as if it's already yours, obstacles don't stop you, they shape you. They become part of the process rather than proof that it's not working. People often think they need more time, more proof, more support before they can step fully into their next level. But most of the time, what they really need is permission from themselves. The courage to stop waiting for something external to justify moving differently. The willingness to embody a new standard, even if the world hasn't caught up to it yet. That is the beginning of power. Not controlling others, not forcing results, but commanding your own state, your own reactions, your own focus, your own integrity. When you live like it's already done, you begin to treat every moment as part of the unfolding, not an audition. You no longer second-guess whether or not you belong. You show up and build. You no longer ask if you're enough. You act in ways that honor the fact that you already are. That shift is subtle but seismic, and over time, it changes how people relate to you. You don't need to push for attention. You draw it, not by demanding it, but by embodying something people can feel but can't always explain. Seneca once said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. But when you live like it's already yours, you don't wait for luck. You create the conditions where opportunity feels natural. Your preparation isn't random, it's precise. Because you already see where you're going, and now everything you do reflects that destination. Your habits become cleaner, your speech becomes sharper, your presence becomes stronger, and people begin treating you like the person you've been becoming all along. Living from that place doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment, a willingness to return to your vision each day and act accordingly, not because it's easy, but because you've already decided. You walk differently because you're carrying something within you that hasn't arrived yet, but already feels real. And that internal reality is what bends external circumstances over time. This is the quiet strength of those who become unshakable. They don't wait for conditions to be ideal before living as their highest self. They bring their highest self into less than ideal conditions and change them. Their energy is the force that transforms rooms, not the reaction to what's already in them. And that energy is cultivated, not inherited. It's practiced, not gifted. So if you want to act as if you cannot lose, start by showing up as if the victory is already written. Stand as if the ground beneath you was designed to hold your success. Speak as if your words already carry weight. Work as if your vision depends on you, not chance. Because it does. When you begin to live like it's already yours, the world can't help but respond. Not because you forced it, but because you've finally stopped doubting what's already been placed inside you. You're no longer asking, waiting, or proving. You're becoming. And everything else, eventually, will align. The moment you begin to live as if you cannot lose, the world no longer decides who you become. You do, Not someday, not when it's easy, but now. Let that decision echo through everything you do from this moment forward. If this spoke to something real in you, there's another step waiting. Watch one of the videos on the screen and keep building the life that already belongs to you. And thank you for walking this path with us. This is Stoic Journal,